Ah, so you noticed the limp. There's quite a story behind that. My name is Jacob, which means tricky, and I'm aptly named because I tricked my brother out of his birthright. I tricked my father out of the blessing he was going to give to my brother, which made my brother so angry he wanted to kill me. So I had to flee for my life. I went to where my other kindred lived back in Haran, and there, I fell in love. I fell in love with Rachel. Rachel was the daughter of my Uncle Laban. Well, he wasn't exactly my uncle, but he was close enough that I called him Uncle Laban. And so I worked for Uncle Laban until I proved that I was worthy, and then I asked him for the hand of his daughter Rachel. And he agreed if I would work with him for 7 years, which I did. I worked for 7 years, and the night of the wedding, I got drunk, and when I woke up in the tent afterwards, it wasn't Rachel, it was Leah. He tricked me. He tricked the tricker. So I went to him and said, wait a minute, I worked 7 years for Rachel. He said, oh, we can't give the younger daughter before the older daughter. So if you want to marry Rachel, you have to work with me for another 7 years, which I did. And the time went by very quickly. And then I worked with him for almost 20 years all total, another 6 years. And I grew very wealthy. God told me to go back to the promised land. So I took my wives, my children, my slaves, and all my livestock, and I was a very wealthy man, and I left Laban, and I started going back to the promised land. But while I'm going, I started thinking, what if Esau's still angry with me? What if he still wants to kill me? And while we were journeying, we were met by some people who said, Esau's coming with 400 men. 400 men? That's an entire army. Now I was really afraid. So I thought, well, I'm a tricky one, so I came up with a plan. So I sent some of my servants with a bunch of my sheep, a lot of sheep. And then I sent some servants with some goats, a lot of goats, and some camels and some bulls. And I said, these are presents for you, my brother Esau. I'm not coming to claim anything. You see, I'm very wealthy. But I was still afraid. And so because I was afraid, I sent my wife and my children and my slaves across the brook so that they would be safe. And then I waited, and then all of a sudden I heard something behind me, and I turned around, and there was this man, and I figured he was an attacker. So before he could attack me, I attacked him, and we started wrestling and fighting and wrestling and fighting and wrestling, and we wrestled and wrestled and wrestled and wrestled, and I was getting tired, and he didn't seem to be getting tired, and we wrestled all night long, and finally he reached over and put his hand on my hip, and he put my hip out of joint. That's why I still limp. And he said, it's about to break into day. He said, let go of me. But I realized he wasn't just a normal man. And so I said, I will not let you go until you bless me. And he said, what is your name? I said, my name is Tricky. He said, no longer will your name be Tricky. Your name will be Israel. For you have wrestled with God and with man and have prevailed. So that next morning, I limped across the river, and there I saw Esau with his 400 men, and I fell down before him, and lo and behold, he forgave me. He raised me up, and he hugged me, and he kissed me, and he welcomed me.